Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to another session of Youth Perspectives, where we talk about issues that are relevant to the youth of America. Today, I am very excited to introduce a new guest, Shan-e-Zahra. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm good.
Thank
How
you.
are you?
I'm good, alhamdulillah. Thank you so much for being on here.
No, it's a pleasure to be here.
So today we're going to talk about an issue that is not only relevant to the youth, but is relevant to actually everybody because it affects every single Shia and every single Muslim actually. So today we're going to talk about the importance of namaz, because the namaz is something that we do more than anything as a Muslim, and it's unfortunately something that we don't give as much importance to because it's very important and we sometimes don't realize it. So today we'll talk about why it's important and unfortunately some reasons why we don't give it as much importance as we should, and then finally we'll talk more about what we can do to improve our concentration and some benefits of really connecting with Allah spiritually during your experiences with namaz. So starting off, Shan-e-Zahra, would you like to explain to us, in your own words, why do you think namaz is so important?
So I think that namaz is one of the most basic things that we're taught when we're little. We're taught to drop everything that we're doing, stop everything that we're doing, just go pray namaz first, whenever it's namaz time. And I think that is because, with the kind of busy lifestyle that we're leading nowadays, with school, work, friends, whatever, we need something that we do consistently that reminds us of Allah, of why we were created, of our connection with Allah, of what it is that we're supposed to do with our lives, not just work and study. And there's also a verse in the Quran that tells us, it says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ista'inu bis-sabri was-salah, inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. And that literally is God giving us the easiest way to live life. He's telling us that, oh, you who believe, take help from namaz and patience, from prayers and patience, and indeed Allah is with the ones that are patient. And that's literally giving us the easiest way to live our lives. And that's why I think it's so important.
Yeah, that's a beautiful explanation, Shan-e-Zahra, and she said it in such a wonderful way that namaz is something that we do so often, and it is a perfect way to gain your connection, gain your spiritual connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah gave this as an opportunity to get closer to Him. So I will also give a hadith by Imam Baqir alayhi salam. He is narrated to have said, "The first thing that a servant shall be reckoned for on the day of judgment shall be his prayers. If they are accepted, all his other deeds shall be accepted too." So this is something that's really interesting because growing up I've heard this as well, if your namaz is accepted, all your deeds are accepted. And if your namaz is not accepted, then none of your other deeds are accepted. And unfortunately, this is something that a lot of people don't understand because, culturally there are a lot of people who believe that if they don't do namaz, they can still go to heaven through other ways. But unfortunately, the case is that you have to give importance to namaz because first and foremost, that is the thing that will be weighed on the day of judgment. So if you don't prioritize that, then nothing else will be accepted. So it's really important to understand that first we have to take care of namaz, then we can worry about all the other things that Allah told us to do. So another reason why namaz is so important is because in the Quran it is said that we were created for worship. I actually don't have the exact verse number, but we've all heard in the Quran that Allah did not create us for anything but except to worship Him. So in that case, it obviously makes sense that namaz should be one of our priorities because it is the reason why we were created, to worship Allah. And unfortunately, one reason why we kind of don't understand that namaz is so important is because it's something that is so common, and we tend to normalize namaz because we have to do it 5 times a day. But we have to understand that because we have to do it so often, we shouldn't become desensitized to the importance. It should actually be the other way around. We should actually understand that the reason Allah is telling us to pray so much is because it is important, because it's so important. Because can you think about it? Out of all the things that Allah told us to do, namaz is the one thing that we have to do the most. 5 times a day, every day for the rest of our lives, we have to pray to Him. So that just kind of gives you an idea of how important namaz is. And if we can understand it, then we should go and take the extra steps to understand why namaz is so important and understand why Allah is calling us to Him 5 times every single day, because it is just so important. So these are some pointers to keep in mind, that namaz is so important, and there's so many other reasons, and it's our responsibility to go out and to understand why namaz is important, because it affects us as Muslims, it affects us in this life and the afterlife as well. So the next question, Shan-e-Zahra, is do you think that Muslims give enough importance to namaz today?
To be very honest, I don't think that we do as much as we should. Because yeah, I mean, there are lots of people who, mashallah, make it a point to, like I said, drop everything that they're doing as soon as it's namaz time, go do wuzu, and make sure that they pray namaz on time. And if they're doing something important, they make sure to do it as soon as they can, right? But then I feel like I said, now our lifestyles now are so busy, and like we tend to put namaz off till the last possible moment. We say things like, oh, if we're watching TV, we're just like, oh, let me finish this episode, or just one more episode, or if like we are, let me just finish this assignment and then I'll pray namaz, and I think that's the worst thing that we do to ourselves, because it's the one thing that keeps us going, keeps everything the way it's supposed to be. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam has even said that whosoever treats namaz poorly with no importance, they will not receive our shafaat, which is the intercession of the Ahlul Bayt on the Day of Judgment. And as Muslims, that should worry us. That's the one thing that we should strive to be able to do, but we put it off, not realizing. We, like you said, we become desensitized to it. We don't understand its importance. We don't, make it, like we schedule our entire day. We say that we need to do this, we need to do that, but we never actually make it a point to include namaz on the top of the list. We don't really do that when we really should.
Yeah, definitely, Shan-e-Zahra, because she's right that we plan everything in our lives. We have a set schedule for everything. Like 9 a.m. I'm going to get up, I'm going to go to work, eat breakfast, do this, do that. I have time for this, for extracurriculars, my social life, my friends, my family, volunteering, internships, all these things, But we don't set aside time for namaz. And it's really sad because, like we mentioned, namaz is the most important thing in our lives, or at least it should be. But we actually, the way we treat it, it's as if it's one of the least important things in our lives. And I will also narrate a hadith from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. He said, by Allah, it is possible that a person lives for 50 years and not even a single prayer of his is accepted. Is there anything harder and more painful than this? By Allah, you will know from your neighbors and your friends that if you talk to them in the same manner as you talk in your prayer, they will not answer you and think you are ridiculing them. Allah does not accept it unless your prayer is excellent. So how do you expect Him to accept your prayer if it's ridiculed? So this is a very good point, because if you think about it, when we do namaz, so many different things are on our mind. We don't even give it any importance whatsoever. And Imam Sadiq alayhi salam is saying, imagine if we were talking like that to our family, to our friends, like just if I'm talking to Shan-e-Zahra, but my mind is blank. I'm just looking at her and just reciting words, and I'm not present in the moment with her. I'm not giving her the attention that she needs, the attention that she deserves. Then that's disrespectful on my part. So imagine our Creator, who has given us everything. He asks us to come and stand in front of Him. He's giving us this opportunity, but unfortunately we don't come and give Allah the attention that we have to. That's disrespectful on our part. And do you think our namaz will be accepted? So that really gets in the way of us building our relationship with Allah with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And unfortunately, it's something that we have to fix immediately, because namaz, we obviously have no guarantee that we're going to live tomorrow or the day after. So we have to take care of that before we take care of everything else. And Shan-e-Zahra is definitely right. And I've seen this trend, again and again, that the youth especially, we've gotten so busy with our lives that we don't give namaz importance. I've seen multiple times with, friends, families, relatives, even, sometimes myself, namaz is like fazilat time is going on, for example, for Maghrib, the sun sets, and people, they're not really preparing for namaz. They're just doing whatever they have to do. They're, watching TV, they're going places. Some people leave the house the moment namaz time begins. And one interesting role model I have in my life is my uncle. Actually, he no matter where he is, he makes sure that at Fazilat time he has the opportunity to pray. So whether he's at like the mall or the airport, even on the plane, wherever he is, he stops and he makes sure that he prays namaz. And if we are making plans to leave the house, he tells people, okay, is it possible that we can pray and leave? Or will we be back in time for namaz? Or if that's not possible, he'll ask, okay, is there some place over there that I can pray? So just learning from him, I realized that namaz is something that we can easily integrate into our lives. We don't have to use the excuse that our lives are so busy and we have to really, free our entire schedule to pray, because understandably our lives are busy and we can pray anywhere. Allah didn't say we have to pray in one specific area. You can pray anywhere. So really to understand that, praying on time is important, praying with the focus is important as well. That's one thing that I really wanted to mention. And, I wanted to share the story of my uncle, because a lot of people should follow his example, and he inspired me to sometimes follow that example as well. So Another thing that we're going to discuss is, since we've established that people do not give enough attention to namaz, Shan-e-Zahra, what do you think are some reasons people do this?
I think that, because like I said, our lifestyles, especially now, the way that the world works, everything is going by so fast. People don't realize how fast time is passing, how before they know it, they're going to be on their deathbeds. People don't realize that, they have this cycle that they fixed in their lives, like you said, wake up, go to work, come back home, spend some time having fun and go to sleep. People have different schedules, but they do the same thing every single day, not realizing that they're running out of time. We were not put in this world to stay here forever. This world, like you said, was a test for us. We were put here to worship God and to learn, right? And so I think that's one of the reasons that people, they just don't realize, even if they think that, oh my God, I'm a Muslim, I need to be doing these things, they just don't realize. And, there's so many ways that we are, repeatedly reminded to pay attention to, to our religion, to namaz, to Allah, just our connection with Allah. And, so many things happen in life that can be reminders for us, but we just tend to ignore those things, I think that's one of the most basic reasons that people don't realize that, how important our connection with Allah is.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really great point because, and I've heard this before, near the end of times, time will fly. And you can ask anybody, and I cannot believe 2018 is already over.
Yeah.
Year by year, the years go by even faster, the days go by even faster. And unfortunately, sometimes we keep telling ourselves that, okay, tomorrow I'll fix myself, tomorrow I'll fix myself. We always push it to tomorrow. We have this habit of procrastinating. We've created this culture of procrastination in everything that we do, including the things that matter the most, like Islam and namaz. And we tell ourselves, okay, next Ramadan or next Muharram, I'll become like a better Muslim, I'll do this, I'll do that. But, like we said, time is short. Like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned, your deathbed, it could be tomorrow. We have no guarantee of when, we will pass away. So we have to be very careful in prioritizing these things. And today and right now, we have to go make the effort to change because we have no guarantee if we're going to be given the opportunity to live the next day. And unfortunately, Khuda na khasta, God forbid, that if we are not given that opportunity, we will be questioned why we did not spend the time we had, to really pay attention to the things that Allah told us to pay attention to. So like Shan-e-Zahra said, there's so many things that distract us, and it really depends. It varies from person to person. Everyone has different responsibilities, different hobbies, interests, different schedules as well. But I think one reason, for example, why people don't give enough attention to namaz is because they just give other things more importance. Like their job or their family life or their social life. They have so many other things that they prioritize first, and they think that doing that is more important. For example, if you have an interview at 3, you have to be there at 3, otherwise you might not get the job. But then you might think, oh, namaz, there's a whole time frame for namaz. I can pray at any time, anywhere, and I do it every day, so why should I even care about namaz? So I think that's why we kind of don't pay attention, because we do it so often. We normalized it. We think it's so normal, and we've normalized it, and we think, okay, namaz is something that I do every day. If I don't do it well today, I can do it better tomorrow, and we always keep pushing it like that. So that's some cycle that we have to really get out of, because that's just a negative downward spiral that will forever keep on going down until we die. And it's hard to come out of that once we desensitize ourselves to the importance of namaz. So we have to keep ourselves reminded that namaz is something that is important, even though it happens every single day. Every single day, namaz shouldn't give you an excuse to push it towards tomorrow. The fact that we pray so much should be an opportunity to encourage you to improve every single time. So you should give your full attention now, and then you should say, okay, next namaz I'll improve even more, next namaz even more, and just keep improving. So another reason why namaz, people don't really give enough importance to it is, and this is a good point, Maulana mentioned it once, that namaz is something that's very abstract. So living in our lives, we're so busy in this materialistic realm, we touch and feel things, we can see things, we hear things, so we know what everything is physically. But namaz is something that forces us to go beyond the materialistic world and to focus on the abstract spiritual experience. So that's hard for us because we're not used to that. So that's why our thoughts wander to things that are, things that are more concrete, and that's why it's harder for us to concentrate in namaz, and we just think it's so hard, so we don't give enough importance. So that's another reason why. But you have to understand that Allah created us for worship, so we need to understand that we have it in us to go beyond all this materialistic world and to really ascend spiritually towards Allah. And then another reason, outside factors and the environment, we might be distracted by children running around, or the place we are, because we might be praying in some place that has a lot of distractions. So that's another reason why we might not be giving enough importance or concentration to namaz. And finally, like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned with the schedule, that we are just so busy sometimes that we just rush our namaz and we don't give enough importance to it. Because if we are truly prioritize something, then we would set everything aside and really just focus on that one thing. For example, if you're at an interview, like I mentioned, you would put everything aside, you would be on time for that interview, and you would give your full attention to that interview because so much is at stake. So similarly, because namaz is so important, so much more is at stake. Your whole afterlife, you going to heaven or hell, all your other deeds, those are at stake. So you really have to prioritize that over everything else. So that's something that I want to mention, that these are all reasons why we don't really give namaz importance, and in the future, in a few minutes, we'll talk about ways to really fix these issues. So, moving on to that, Shan-e-Zahra, what are some ways we can encourage other people to give more importance to namaz in a time where they really don't?
Well, the first thing that I thought of was that, we, even though this is not really like about people who can control it, but we should think about our children. Like when we have, siblings, nieces and nephews, cousins, friends, kids, whatever, we need to focus on those children. So we need to teach them the importance. We've seen how children often, mimic our actions when we're praying, right? And that really tells us how kids have it in them to learn from observing, right? And at least by teaching them, we are doing our part in helping shape the future of our society. I even heard this one thing where someone said that if during namaz time, if you're at a masjid or a center and you don't hear children, that is something that is dangerous for your community, because it tells you that if the children of your community are not really involved during namaz time, even if they're little, even if they're just making noise, it is something that we should really focus and work on, because once we're gone, it's our children that are gonna teach their kids what we've taught them. And if we don't teach them how important namaz is, who's going to teach their kids, And also, like, another thing that, that can emphasize the importance of namaz is just the rewards. Like, just think about how much we get by praying namaz on time. It's narrated from Imam Hassan Askari alayhi salam that Prophet Musa alayhi salam, in his whispered prayer to Allah, he used to ask Allah that, what is the reward for one who performs his salat on time? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala replied that whatever he asks from me, I will give it to him, and I will make heaven permissible for him. And honestly, what more do we want? What more do we need, actually? We need to lead our lives the correct way, and then we want to end up in heaven, right? That's basically what we want out of this life. And Allah is literally giving us the answer, telling us that praying namaz on time, I will give you what you want, and I will permit you to go to heaven. And I think that's like the best thing that we can ever think about if we while just praying. Also, this might seem a bit grim, but we also need to remember the punishments, that if this is Allah trying to remind us of the importance of namaz for our own good. And another saying by one of our imams is that the one who treats namaz insignificantly is not one of us. And again, as Muslims, that should scare us. That should remind us that, we would want to be with the people of the Ahlul Bayt on the Day of Judgment. We don't want to be one of those people who just watch by the sidelines and end up, in hell, Allah nakar. Like, we want to be one of the people who are with the Imam throughout the entire hereafter. And I feel like namaz is the easiest way to get there.
Yeah, definitely, Shan-e-Zahra. Those are great points. I actually didn't even think about the point she made about children, that we have a future generation to really raise. And as Muslims, it is our responsibility to be good role models for the people ahead of us and for the people behind us, because Islam says that no matter your age, the older people can learn from you and the younger people can learn from you as well. But especially when it comes to the younger people, we are a role model. Whether we like it or not, we will always have people looking up to us. So really, whether you like it or not, someone will always look up to you. Someone will always be taking your example. It might not be in front of your face, but behind your back. Those parents who always compare their kids to someone else. You will always be someone who someone else will look up to. So you have a responsibility to kind of uphold that, good example for people. And that's just one of the many reasons why you should, take importance to namaz, because it's not just for other people, but just like we mentioned, for yourself. And Shan-e-Zahra made another wonderful point, and I heard this hadith as well, that if, we take namaz insignificantly, then we are not from the Ahlul Bayt. So as Shia, we take intercession so important, right? Like shifa of Ahlul Bayt, we think that's so important on the Day of Judgment. That's something that we rely on to like save ourselves. But imagine if we don't take our namaz importantly, and if the Ahlul Bayt in a hadith said that we are not from them if we don't take namaz seriously, will we ever expect to receive their intercession on the Day of Judgment? So that's something that really scares me, that if we don't take namaz seriously, would you even like have hope for any intercession at all? So you really have to prioritize your namaz. That's the first and foremost thing, like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned. And also the fact that we are an example for other people, and we have to set that example so other people can follow. Additionally, some ways to encourage people to give more importance to namaz is, first and foremost, you yourself have to give importance to namaz, because we obviously can't encourage other people if we ourselves are not convinced completely that namaz is something that we have to prioritize over everything else in our lives. So another thing we can do to encourage other people, once we've kind of educated ourselves about namaz, and once we've ourselves understood that namaz is important, is then we can move on to educate other people. So we can, tell other people hadith or some verses from the Quran, like, Allah created us for nothing but to worship Him. And we can do so many other things to educate people on why namaz is so important. Because usually a reason why people don't give importance to namaz is because they're ignorant, it's out of ignorance. So they don't know the truth, they don't have knowledge on the matter, so that's why they don't act upon that knowledge. So it's our responsibility as Muslims to, help raise other Muslims as well, so we can excel as a Muslim ummah, as a society, and, pave the way for Imam Mahdi alayhi salam to, come, inshallah, sooner. So it is our responsibility to not only take care of ourselves, but once we master all the knowledge of, all these important things, it's our responsibility to carry the burden of that and to share the knowledge with other people so they can excel in their lives, and to also use the knowledge that we have and implement it in our lives so that other people can look at us and follow that example. So the best teacher is a good role model. So instead of going and telling people, the best thing you can do is act on it yourself, and other people will look at you and just automatically be attracted to someone with good mannerisms, good traits, good akhlaq, with just a good spiritual, vibe coming from them. So that's really important. And a lot of the times, even if we have the knowledge, we don't act upon it, and that in itself is something that's so terrible, because if we have knowledge sitting in our minds but we don't act upon it, then we might be even worse than the people who are ignorant themselves, because who knows, what if the ignorant people with that knowledge would have changed? But us, we have the knowledge but we don't act on it, even when we have something so valuable. So knowledge is more valuable than like even gold. We've heard this in hadith, knowledge is something that's, the richest person has, knowledge. So if we don't act upon that, then we're pretty much just misers who don't take advantage of what Allah has given us. So that's something that we have to do to really encourage other people, is to educate ourselves first, then educate others about it, and then thirdly, be a good example and be a good role model for not only other people, but for the children, for the future generation. Because as times get worse and worse, God forbid, we don't know how it's going to be in the next generation and the generation after that. So it's our responsibility to really make sure that the next generations have the good foundation and the good building blocks of Islam. They have the good priorities, they have it all set straight, so that when the time comes for them to raise the next generation, Islam will still be strong in their hearts. So moving on, now comes to the really important part of the session, Shan-e-Zahra, that we talked about, people don't give enough importance to namaz and, why they should. But now we're going to talk about what people can do exactly to improve their concentration in prayer. Like, what exactly can we do to change this?
So first, I think there's the little things, like if the TV is turned on, turn it off. If don't pray in front of a mirror, because that's also makruh. It's highly frowned upon. Make sure to use the restroom ahead of time before praying namaz, so that you're not in a hurry to finish. You're focusing. I used to think that these little things didn't really matter, but they actually do. As I grow older, I notice how it actually helps. Those little things make the biggest difference. And then another trick that I started using a couple years ago was that, and this really helps me focus, is that just pay attention to the meaning of what I'm reciting. For example, Surah Fatiha, right? The first verse is Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, right? And the literal translation is, all praise is to Allah who is the Lord of the worlds. And honestly, if you think about it, just that one line has so much meaning inside it. The word alameen is the plural of alam, which means world, right? So he's talking about worlds. If you think about that, this means that there are worlds that there were and there might still be worlds other than ours. Just that one word, if you're thinking about it, it should make you feel in awe of Allah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, honestly, we don't think about it, but there's so much that He has, that He has given us, and we don't really think about it. I even heard this, I don't know if it's a real story, if it's just an anecdote, but this person asked another person to think of a tree. Just imagine a tree in their head, right? And then he told him to hold the picture of that tree in his head for as long as he could. And then they started talking about something else, and then after some time he goes back and he asks him, do you still remember the tree? And he replies that no, I completely forgot about it. And that kind of tells us that imagine if Allah stopped having us exist. Imagine that for 1 second He just forgot about us, which obviously Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's Allah, He can't really forget, but imagine if that happened, we wouldn't exist anymore. Just the thought of Him listening to every single human, not just human, but creation in this world, and Him being able to listen to it, to pay attention to it, to pay attention to each one of our needs, that should just help us think how much Allah, has given us. That's one of the biggest things that I think about while I'm praying, that even if I don't understand what I'm really saying, which we should, as Muslims, even if we don't speak the Arabic language, we should at least try to understand what it is that we're saying in our namaz, because honestly, like you said, it's not just an interview, it's an appointment with our Allah, with our Creator. He thought to create us, and just that thought itself should make us aware that what we're actually doing. We're not just reciting something with a blank mind, we're actually praying to our God, and that's the biggest thing that we can think about.
Yeah, definitely, Shan-e-Zahra. That's a very interesting example that she gave, that if we think of something like a tree and we just forget about it, it's as if the tree never existed. So imagine that Allah always, obviously He's Allah, yeah. But every second He's paying attention to us, and He's ready to answer our prayers, even when it comes to dua, So it's so important that namaz is that special time Allah is calling you, He is inviting you as His personal guest, and He's telling you, come talk to me. So imagine, when guests are coming to our house, we spend so much time preparing. We clean the house, we cook, we wear good clothes, we make sure everything's perfect for the guest. We don't care, what goes on. We just want to make sure that the guest is received in such a well manner, and that all the wishes of the guest are, fulfilled, because, the guest is so important in our house. So imagine that Allah is inviting us. Allah is the host, and we are Allah's guest. So when we are the host, if we treat guests in such a wonderful way, imagine how Allah treats His guests. So 5 times a day, He is asking you, He's inviting you over to come and be His guest. And He will obviously listen to anything that you have. So one thing that we can really do to improve our concentration is to understand the importance and the intensity of namaz, that Allah is literally telling you to come and ask Him for anything in the world. And He is like a one-on-one appointment with your Lord, the one who created you, the one who can give you anything you want, the only one who can give you happiness. Because unfortunately, sometimes we search for happiness elsewhere in other things, but we can never find them. Allah is the only one who can truly give us eternal bliss in this world and the next, and Salah is the key to that door. So that's one thing that we can do, really to understand the importance of namaz, and that will kind of encourage us and motivate us and inspire us to have more concentration. And then, like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned, one of the most important things as well is the meaning, because if we're just praying namaz and just saying things in Arabic without knowing what we're saying, then how can we connect to Allah? So really take out the time to learn the meaning of Surah Fatiha, to learn the meaning of all the things when you say like ruku, sajda, and you go say that salam at the end. So really think about what you're saying, and then maybe learn some new du'as. There's so many things you could say during qunut, so maybe find a du'a that speaks out to you, and that way you can really have your personal connection, because Allah gave us that opportunity that whatever you want to pray for, you can do it during qunut, so that's something that we can take advantage of as well. So important thing is understand the reasons why we have to pray, also understand the meaning and really connect with the meaning. And then there's so many other reasons as well. One way that we can improve our concentration in namaz is to identify and eliminate distractions. So this is something that is really important, because usually we're so distracted during namaz. So identify, maybe even write it down. What do you think distracts you during namaz? And this answer can vary from person to person. For some people, they are distracted when there are other people around. So eliminate that distraction. Go in a quiet place and pray. Eliminate that distraction. For some people, they cannot pray if, their room is messy. So either go in a clean room and pray, or quickly clean your room before namaz time and then pray in that clean area. For some people, and there's so many other reasons, some people, they cannot pray because they feel rushed. So set aside your appointments, or if you're going out with friends, tell them, okay, let's meet 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, I need to pray first. So set aside your distractions, eliminate them, and get them out of the way so they don't distract you during namaz time and your mind is not elsewhere. Some other thing you can do to improve your concentration is to complete all your unfinished tasks. So we have so many things that we have to do, and obviously in namaz, there's this joke that goes around, right? If you forget to do something, pray namaz and you'll remember it. Like the moment you pray, you're like, oh shoot, I had to do this, I had to do that, I had 10 things on my mind, and you remember all of that, like your whole grocery list, like, oh, I forgot to buy tomatoes. You remember everything during namaz, the things that you forgot, when you weren't praying. So what's a good thing to do is to really get a list and to write down all your unfinished tasks and complete as much of them as you can. But if you can't complete them, just have a list and it'll help you. It'll give you a peace of mind that, okay, I have a list that's sitting on a table waiting for me, so I don't have to juggle all of that in my memory. I don't have to really think about all of that while I'm doing namaz, because the moment I finish namaz, I have that list ready for myself. So really write a list of all the unfinished tasks, and maybe before namaz time, prior to Vazilat time, try to complete as many of them as you can. But if you cannot, then just have that list ready. So after namaz, you have that list with you and it's not something that's burdening your memory or anything. And then thirdly, I also mentioned this, find a quiet, constant place to pray. Because at home, if we keep praying everywhere, we might not have that spiritual connection. So maybe have a set area, designated area where you pray all the time. So at home, if you have that opportunity, maybe some people have namaz rooms in their houses, but if you don't, it's fine. If you don't have a specific namaz area, you can make your own room a namaz area, like a specific corner in your room. Just pray there every day, because what happens is over time, as you get used to praying there, our brain is so wonderful. Our mind just switches to that spiritual perspective. Our lens switches to a spiritual one when we go to that location, because we go there all the time, and our body and our mind are like, okay, we're going here, now it's time to pray. So your mind gets used to that location, and it starts associating that location with prayer. It starts associating that location with connecting with Allah. So if you have a constant place, it kind of helps your body, helps your mind to kind of, agree with that environment, to truly help you build spiritually your connection with Allah during namaz. So that's something else. Again, make sure the place is quiet, because noise is one of the biggest distractions. It just cuts you off and distracts you from everything. And then also do wudu with the right mindset. So wudu is something that you do before namaz for a reason, right? You are preparing yourself for namaz. So understand that the moment you're going to do wudu, that's when you should kind of take away everything else out of your mind and really focus on, where you're going to do what you have, where you're going to go, what you're going to do. And you have to really tell yourself that while I'm doing wudu, I'm preparing for namaz. And there's a special dua that I'm not going to mention, but you can just search it up. There's a special dua to do during wudu that helps you prepare, helps remind you of the Day of Judgment, and it puts you in that mentality, in that mindset. So when you go to pray, you will be ready. So that's one thing. And then relax your mind. Just write down your thoughts and worries. If there's something that's stressing you out, write it down. There are so many benefits of writing things down. So just write all your thoughts and worries down on a paper, all that brain noise, and just put it aside so you can really, with a calm peace of mind, you can focus on namaz. Also, realize who you are standing in front of. So, Shan-e-Zahra mentioned this as well. Just realize that Allah, you're having an appointment with Him. And the more you build your connection with Allah, the more you try to improve your concentration in prayer, the better you'll get. Because, as it is said, that if you take, one step towards Allah, Allah will take 10 or 100 steps in your direction. So even if you have a little ambition to go closer to Allah, to concentrate with your namaz, Allah will obviously help you, and He will make ends meet, and He will go His length to make sure that you are closer to Him. So that's our responsibility, a small responsibility, to try to reach closer to Him, and Allah will take care of the rest. And then lastly but not least, practice and persevere. So just keep practicing on how to concentrate on namaz. You might not get it right the first time, but just keep practicing and never grow impatient. Be patient with it and persevere, because that's the most important thing. And over time, gradually, your namaz will definitely improve, inshallah. So with that being said, Shan-e-Zahra, what are some benefits of having a better concentration, once we've gotten all that down?
I don't think you can really put a limit to it, honestly, because like we said, namaz is infinite, Allah is infinite, praying just puts you in this amazing, it just gives you this amazing feeling sometimes, when you've done it correctly. And, good things are going to keep happening to you if you've been praying correctly, if you've been doing it to your own satisfaction, because like you said, it differs from person to person. Everyone has their own mindset, their own capability, right? And that is why Allah has given us our own paths to Him. We're born alone, we go back to Him alone. And that reminds us that praying namaz will always give you something good. Allah only made namaz wajib for our own good. Honestly, if you think about it, we often think that, oh my God, I have to pray namaz because it is wajib. Why did Allah make namaz wajib? It takes out time from my schedule, stuff like that. People think that often. But if you think about it, Allah only made it wajib for our own good. When you've prayed namaz on time, everything seems easy, I don't know if this is normal for everyone, but I've noticed often that, homework seems to finish a lot faster, tests seem a lot easier. And also, there's also some, I don't know if this is real, but like sometimes it feels like there's an extra amount of barakat in my time. Like it feels like I have more time to do things, which is something that like I've started to notice only recently. It also feels like sometimes that you have less stress. When you've concentrated on namaz, even though you're not you said that when we start praying namaz, we should put aside all our distractions, not think about the worldly things, right? But honestly, like sometimes when you've prayed namaz the way you should, with the ultimate spiritual connection with Allah, you realize that as soon as you're done praying, you somehow sort of have a solution in your head, to those problems that you're having, to those everyday troubles. And sometimes it feels like if there's something that tires you or something that depresses you, when you're done praying, it feels like it's gone, or like there's a solution to it, or that you have an outlet for those emotions. And sometimes I even think of it this way, that people go to therapists to talk about their problems, but honestly, if we just after namaz put 2 to 3 minutes into our sajda, just go into sajda and just think of if you're by yourself, just whisper your problems out loud while in sajda, or if you would just want to think about it in your head, and then once you get up, you feel so much more relieved. I do that sometimes when everything gets really hectic, especially with like tests and stuff, and that helps a lot. I feel like that's another benefit. You just feel like you have someone who's listening to you, and sometimes people say that, yeah, I'm talking to Allah, but I don't really get a reply from Him. And for me, the solution to that, I feel like sometimes it works, is that I talk to Allah about my problems in my head, and then you get the Quran and you open the Quran, just a random page, and the first verse that your eyes fall upon, just read the translation of that verse, and somehow that ayat it's gonna speak to you. It feels like God is answering your problems in His own way through His own words. And honestly, this is kind of funny to me, but when I pray namaz on time and I know that I've done it nicely, I don't have to deal with the guilt that I didn't give Allah the time that, not that He deserves it, but that I deserve to, like it's my responsibility to give Him that time, right? And I feel like that I don't have to go through that if I actually pray on time and do it the way I'm supposed to, as best as I can.
Yeah, definitely. That's like a beautiful response, really, that Allah, like, it's our responsibility. We deserve to give Allah that time, because we have so many benefits. And I love how she mentioned that there really is no limit to the amount of benefits you get when you increase your concentration. But here are a few that I will mention. They're literally an infinite amount of benefits. But one is that you get this opportunity to get closer to Allah. And in the Quran, it is said in Surah Al-Baqarah that when my servants ask you about me, tell them that I am indeed nearmost. I answer the supplicant's call when he calls me. So let them respond to me and let them have faith in me, so that they may fare rightly. So Allah is inviting us to supplicate to Him so that He may answer. In the Quran, He says so Himself, that He will answer our prayers. So this is a wonderful opportunity. So that's one benefit. Another benefit is that namaz keeps you away from sin. So again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, recite what has been revealed to you of the book and maintain the prayer. Indeed, the prayer prevents indecencies and wrongs, and the remembrance of Allah is surely greater. And Allah knows whatever deeds you do. So this is very beautiful because literally just improving the quality of your namaz will help you keep away from all other sins. So that's like you're it's like the jackpot, right? Like you just pay attention with your namaz, and then all your sins you don't have to worry about it because it comes like a package deal. You take care of your namaz, everything, all your other sins will be taken care of as well. Because as you improve your concentration and your connection with Allah, you won't be inclined towards those sins anymore. So that's something that's really interesting. Thirdly, namaz sets your heart at rest. And again, it is emphasized that those who have faith and those whose hearts find rest in the remembrance of Allah, look, the hearts find rest in the remembrance of Allah. It's mentioned twice in two verses that in the remembrance of Allah, do hearts find rest. And this is a very interesting quote that I've heard multiple times in the Quran, that your heart will be at ease. And we're so stressed in our everyday lives, and we're on the struggle to find happiness, to achieve happiness, and we don't realize that it's sitting right in front of us, and we don't realize it. Namaz, it's there for us for a reason, and if we take the time out to prioritize that and really gain the benefits of namaz, we will be happy, we'll stay away from sin, and we won't have that stress, like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned, when she goes down in sujood and she just does dua to Allah, like her worries just go away. So that's something that we really have to take advantage of, and that helps not only our spiritual being but our emotional and mental being as well, our psychological state as well. So that's something that's really interesting for namaz as well. Also, all your deeds are accepted, like we mentioned in the beginning. If namaz is accepted, all your other deeds are accepted as well. Also, with like a hadith of the Prophet, I believe, right, that whoever takes namaz, whoever doesn't take namaz, like, what was the quote? Whoever doesn't take namaz,
whoever treats namaz insignificantly will not receive the intercession. That's Imam Jafar Sadiq
alayhi salam. So definitely, so if we do think that namaz is important, if we treat it with importance, then we will receive the intercession of the Ahlul Bayt as well. And then also, it helps increase your strength, your mental strength, and your focus. So like Shan-e-Zahra mentioned with her other tasks, you kind of noticed how like it increased your focus, and that's interesting because coincidentally I had the same exact point. We didn't plan this, that if you really you're patient and you persevere during namaz and you train your mind to focus, then for other tasks as well, like for your work or for your school, job, interview, anything, you will have that perseverance, and you will have that mental capability and mental capacity to focus for long periods of time and to really give your complete attention to something, because our brain is like a muscle. It acts like one. If you keep on training it, it will accustom its way to how we kind of how we want it to be. So if we keep concentrating on namaz, definitely our brain will be accustomed to that, and it will help us in all other aspects of our lives. So those are some of the few benefits of concentrating more in namaz. There's so many benefits, but those are just a few that we would like to mention. And to kind of end, Shan-e-Zahra, can you share a story about namaz in your own life?
Okay, so it's not really a story, but more of an experience. Like I experience this every single day. Usually when I wake up for school, in the morning, like around 6:15, 6:30, I get up for school, I have to pray namaz and then I have to leave for school. It takes about 45 minutes, right? And so, usually like when I'm in a rush, I get up and I have to, I know that I have to get ready, I have to pray namaz, I have to pack up my stuff, I have to have breakfast, take the office to mom and leave. That's kind of like what every high school student's life is like. But I've noticed that when I wake up and the first thing that I do is go do wuzu and pray namaz, I feel like I said this before, I feel like there's a lot more barakat in time. After I'm done praying, I look at the clock and there's still almost 40 minutes left for me to do everything that I have to do. And versus when I wake up and, for example, I get ready first and then have breakfast and then pray namaz, first of all, I'm putting it off. Again, that's something that we're not really supposed to do. I'm putting it off until it's almost qaza, which is obviously you're not supposed to do that. But other than that, I also realized that everything is so rushed. I don't really have enough time to do everything. Sometimes I have to skip one or two things in the morning. And it's something that I noticed like recently, for some time now, but it just seems so cool to me. Like, literally time is fluid. We don't know what time really is. But then it seems like there's so much more of it when I prioritize namaz in the morning, And like it's a very common belief that dawn time, the time when the sun is rising, is the best time for you physically, emotionally, and mentally, right? And also spiritually. Like you learn this, people go for walks in the mornings, and that kind of like opens their, that's a good beginning for their day. But for me, I feel like just praying namaz, And you know, setting just that few minutes aside as soon as I wake up just gives me that whole, like, a really good start to my day. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just something I've noticed.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
You know, like how you said that a lot. Like you kind of feel like you have more time during the day. It's really interesting how you take one step towards Allah, and He will do wonders to make sure that you're well taken care of. So, Shan-e-Zahra, do you have any advice for the youth about this particular matter?
Well, I'm still learning, so I wouldn't really call it advice, right? But what I have learned, honestly, like, you know, like I said, life is so crazy busy, you know, especially like when you're a student or even when you're working, you know, there's always something that's happening. It could be with family, work, school, literally anything in your life. But, and you know, honestly, before we know it, it's already dark. Like, that's how fast time is passing, you know. Before we know, the day's over and the next day already started, you know, months pass by. But the one thing that I've learned and try to practice is that the more importance you give to namaz, the easier life is going to be for you. And that's literally what God has promised us in the Quran, through the Imams, everywhere, right? That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us, that your life will be easier and it will go the way that Allah has planned for you if you give Him the importance, right? Because like I said, you know, He's our creator. He's the one who gave us the importance of even existing, you know, like, just thinking of it, like, there was a possibility that I wouldn't exist, but someone else would have existed, you know? And just thinking of that, like, just giving namaz that importance, to not only because it's wajib, but because it's good for you, you know? It's good for your soul, it's good for your life, and it's good for your hereafter, obviously. So that's just the one thing, just give importance to namaz. Honestly, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes just to pray wajib namaz. You know, we put it off until the end, and then it seems like such a burden sometimes, but honestly, it's not. You know, it's just something that we need to prioritize and really honestly observe how important it is for us.
Yeah, definitely. And Shan-e-Zahra, you're right. You know, we don't do namaz. It's not like we do namaz for Allah, right? We do it for ourselves. And that's what Allah is telling us. Allah doesn't need us to pray to Him. We need the benefit of praying to Allah. So all the things you're doing, all the efforts you're taking towards improving your concentration, it's all for you. You will see all the benefits. You're not doing this for anyone else. It's all something that you will see the results, and you will bear the good fruits of everything that you do. So with that, Shan-e-Zahra, do you have any last thoughts or closing remarks on
Not
this?
really.
Yeah, so she said everything so beautifully.
Yeah.
So, you know, truly, just remember that no one has ever regretted praying namaz on time or giving the importance of namaz, right? Did you ever regret, oh, I shouldn't have given namaz that much importance? No, right? Because namaz is something that's so important. And obviously every day we regret putting off namaz, we regret not giving namaz enough importance, so obviously we should make a change towards that. And always remember that, like Shan-e-Zahra said, the more importance you give to a namaz, the more importance Allah will give to you and your life. Like, honestly, Allah will make wonders happen to make sure that you're well taken care of. And always remember that namaz is something that at the end of the day is the most important thing, and it is the most important responsibility that we have as Muslims. And at the end of the day, it's something that we should definitely prioritize over everything else. So inshallah, you know, we'll use this session and take this as an opportunity to really in the future really build our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to really improve our concentration and importance when it comes to namaz. So with that being said, thank you very much for watching this segment, and see you inshallah next time on Youth Perspectives.